Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started now. For the live translations and captions, please scan the QR code on your screen. We'll be doing Q&As at the end of the workshop, so please leave your questions in the form being displayed at the top of the screen. During the workshop, we'll have 2 live challenges where you'll have a chance to win a $30 US dollar Go gift card. One gift card will be drawn for each challenge among the correct answers. Don't forget to scan the code on the screen when it appears. Winners will be announced after all Connect 2023 workshops are completed. Now, I will hand it off to Anareloux to talk about best practices with brands.
Hello, everyone. All right, so I will get started. I hope everyone's having a good day. Slay. All right, hi, everyone. I'm going to be doing brand partnerships today and any best practices that you can do with brands. My name is Anareloux. So let's go over what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go over portfolios, what they are, how to make them, what looks good. We're also going to go over pitches to brands. That's the beginner steps of getting to talk to brands and getting their attention. Then we're going to go over the selection process. So once you've decided that this brand is good to work with, just kind of some things to look out for. And then workflow tips, which is just once you are working on that brand partnership, what kind of steps you should take in order to make it the most seamless process possible. And then I'll go ahead and take some questions. But before we get into all of that, I'm going to word vomit just a little bit about myself real quick so you guys can get to know me a little bit better. So this is a collage of everything that I think is pretty representative of me. Have a bunch of pictures of myself to the left as well as my avatar and some silly images. I also have pictures of brand partnership things that I've done before. So I've worked with Netflix and Stranger Things with a kind of sub collaboration with Gap. I've also done stuff with Sesame Street, NARS, a couple TikTokers, NASCAR, and 4 more projects this year that are coming out soon. Brand partnerships take a long time, so sometimes it's really hard to be able to talk about anything. I also have pictures of all my dogs to the right. My little puppy on the bottom left is Pudge. The one on the right is Max. He's a little old man living with my parents. And then we have Cece and Sasha left to right on the top, and they're all golden retrievers, and Max is like a mix. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And then at the bottom, I have Finn the frog, who is my helpful little friend on streams. And if you followed me before or know about me, you know that I really like frogs. All right, so let's get into it. Portfolios. So why have a portfolio in the first place? So it's good in a pinch. If you have a recruiter that's reaching out to you, the quicker you respond to them, the more likely you'll get the job. More often than not, recruiters are reaching out to multiple people at once and kind of picking of the batch, like who replies quickest and who has the best portfolio, etc. So if you don't have one already when you get reached out to, you're probably going to be scrambling to get one put together, and that's not ideal because it's either going to be sloppy, you're going to make grammatical errors, mistakes, pictures are not going to look clean. You want to take time to make it look good, right? And that leads us to professionalism. So you just want to make sure that as you are working on your portfolios, you have a cohesive representation of your brand, yourself, whatever it is that you want to put out there as a forward facing image of yourself. It makes you look more professional to brands that you even have a portfolio in the first place. And then accessibility. So even if you are not being reached out to in the first place, putting your portfolio out there allows people to take a look at what you're about, what you do, what you have done. And it makes it easier for people to maybe later on kind of like bookmark that in their head and then reach out to you later. And then I have my portfolio C's, which are basically just the 3 C's of what I'd like to remember when I give people tips on portfolio. So first we have clean renders. So that would kind of be the top image example where your renders are visible and clean, and basically it's just highlighting the product. So the Sesame Street hats are being highlighted here. We have a black mannequin and a white background, just keeping it super simple, just so that whoever is looking at your stuff can like just admire like your meshes, your art design, and whatever it is that you did. versus like having too much noise going on in the background, too much editing or sparkles or glitter or whatever. It just gets really distracting and takes away from the original work that you did. Which leads me to concise wording. So when another thing that you want to make sure you don't have too much noise going on with is how you word your portfolio. Keep it strictly to just like the dates you worked on these things, um, any references, the title of the item or what the item is. And if you want to add a brief description, no more than a sentence, I would say. Um, I would completely add a separate page if you wanted to talk about your type of workflow or the programs that you've used, or, like if it was a really complicated item and you really want to go into a thread about like the mastery and artistry that it took to make that item, I would do that on a completely separate page. And then cohesive branding, that one's pretty simple. So just make sure that your portfolio does not look like it was generated by 5 different people. So if you have white backgrounds and, this color going on, if you have red all over your portfolio, keep it to red. Don't do like a million other colors. I would at max 5 branding colors, and 3 of those should be similar. And this is where you can mess with a little more of a GFX quality to things. So we did the Stranger Things, as I mentioned, and kind of the branding for that we kept really cohesive to Netflix, but also maintain that like Roblox Kestrel feel with all the items. So that's why they have the shading that they do, the coloring that they do. But in order to, kind of present a more finalized like marketing product, we opted for this render. So kind of like be selective in your decisions when it comes to your branding. But if you just want to showcase work for what it is, keep it simple. So now we can jump into pitching, and I think this is the one that I get a lot of questions about. It's just like, well, how do I even get a brand to notice me in the first place? Like, I'm not getting any brand deals organically. So if you want to be the one to reach out to them first, which is something that works, like, don't be scared to do that. Here are some ways to do so. So you have LinkedIn, which is I think is the most effective way. So you can follow like marketing partnership and product leads. Those are people that just essentially are probably going to be like the best contact for something like brand partnership related. Everyone else is probably going to either A, ignore your inbox message because it has nothing to do what they do, or B, they're going to redirect you. And then like that's just like extra steps. So just keep it to that. And then I would not just like straight out of leaving this like presentation go make a LinkedIn account and start messaging people. Start building a network, post a little bit about what you've done. Use LinkedIn as kind of like a secondary portfolio, but like social media too. Make sure to connect with some people in the community that you're familiar with. Just like make your LinkedIn look good before you even go out and message people, because again, like first thing people do is like look at an account before they message back. So you're going to want to make sure you look professional. Email is a little harder to find people's emails, but not impossible. You can always like if you want to message a brand partner, and you want to find an email, you can always try looking up like brand and then corporate website rather than like brand itself, because that just leads you to like their product page. And you can try finding contacts there. You can look at press releases, you can look at investor pages. Those are really good ways to find people that would be relevant towards what you need. um, and although they're harder to find, if you get into someone's inbox, like first of all, that's like really impressive, and second of all, they're way more likely to respond, um, because there's a reason why those inboxes are hidden and filtered in the first place. With that, I recommend always having a business email. It costs like $10 to buy, like a $10 a month, for the year to buy like a website page and like a URL, so that it could be like Anareloux at kestrelclothing.com. That's better than just like at gmail.com, because then you look a little more professional. And then Twitter networks. Don't really recommend this. Really hard. People get really annoyed when they get DMs in their inboxes, especially if they're a big brand or big account. Um, I think really this would only work if like the particular person that you're reaching out to is like kind of unknown in the public space, and they maybe have like 200 or so followers, and you can tell it's kind of like a colleague kind of situation. You could try reaching out, but I don't recommend it. All right, so how do we write a good pitch? This is like the holy grail of good pitches in terms of like an outline. So, first, introduce yourself. Give your name, your profession, your company, what platform you work for. Give them a concise, quick, hey, this is who I am. And make sure your tone and your vocabulary is up to par with who you're messaging. Um, I have fought the urge to type slay in a message to so many professionals, but if I can do it, so can you. And in addition, you want to then get into your pitch. So, again, super concise. Why? You don't want to give too much away of what it is that you're pitching to them because this has happened to me. Brands will see your prices, or they'll think that they can do it better, and so they'll take your idea and take it somewhere else. So be concise, be specific, but also make sure that you're not giving away too much about your idea. And make sure you have a closing statement with an offer to call, because that puts them in a position to respond to that and say, yeah, here's the time where I can call, or I can't call right now, but let's work something else out. But always like put that offer down so that they're in a position to respond. And then really quick after your pitch, you just want to maybe provide some metrics like, cool, here's my pitch. And like, hey, like here are my metrics. Like I've sold this much and have accomplished this much, and this is my game, and this is my team, and kind of like a super quick condensed resume, but like really focused on like statistics, because again, brands like numbers, they like seeing statistics and results. So they're going to want to go with someone who can provide them, kind of assurance that, whatever it is that they're going to do with you is going to succeed because you have these accolades under your name. And if you want, I think the best way to do this is by just sharing a deck in the email. So you can say something like, la la la, here's my pitch. I've also attached a deck so that you can take a look at our branding. And I can make a whole other slideshow about how to make a good deck. But it's essentially like a portfolio. It's just kind of like making something that catches a brand's attention, lets them know who you are, has very like eye-catching imagery and statistics about you and yourself. But you can always find resources online of like how to make a good deck. So let's get into, okay, the brand reached back out. Now let's see if we're going to decide to work with them in the first place. So let's go over some pros and cons. So pros, immediately the brand can speak on budget. So maybe not in the initial email, but like really early on, this brand should be able to say, this is how much we have, or this is how much we can pay you. Um, are you in agreement with this? Cool, let's draft that up into a contract. That's how it should go. If they're being dodgy about payment, or oh, we'll see, what this project's overall budget's going to look like later down the line, or what. No, always make sure that they have a clear budget, and that they can share that with you openly after you've signed your NDAs or whatever. Never sign anything that says you're going to start on any kind of project without a number being on there saying this is how much you're going to get paid for and when. We'll get into that. um Another pro is that this brand can like have a clear vision of what they're doing. So say you pitch something, but they come in and say like, we have these ideas too. If they're like unsure about those ideas, or they're too broad about it, and when you ask them questions, like they can't really give you specifics on like what it is that they want, that's immediately like a red flag. So you want to make sure. Most brands will come in and say, this is what we want, this is what our brand guide looks like, this is the idea we have, can you do it? So that's always a positive when you're just getting in the beginnings of like working with a brand. And then make sure your contract is fair. I could also make a whole presentation about contracts, but basically just make sure that your numbers are there and it's a fair price for the amount of work and time that you're putting into this. Make sure that you're able to take all this work and take ownership of it afterwards and say that I did this, I worked on this. A couple other things, but yeah, just always make sure your contracts are fair. A lawyer in these cases is usually the best way to go. Cons. So too many cooks in the kitchen. What do I mean by that? So you should at most be talking to 3 people from a brand in any partnership. There are exceptions to this, but rarely. The reason it shouldn't be usually no more than 3 is because you have way too many people talking to you and opinionating at once, and also giving you information at once, like different information, and it either quickly becomes like contradicting, or it will get confusing, or they'll start changing on you like ideas and pivoting. So you just want to make sure that when you meet with them, there's not like 5 or 6 people in that Zoom call unless they absolutely need to be there. So you have like the president that maybe wants to be there if that president of that company is super involved, and then your brand partner, manager, maybe like a lead that needs to manage you, but that's about it. You don't need more people than that. No brand guide, that's like pretty evident, but I think like when I first started working out, I didn't get brand guides initially, and I had to like bug brands to give them to me. But basically, a brand guide, if you don't know what that is just like what colors, fonts, sizes, like graphic images, whatever it is that they like use themselves, like that is provided to you through a PDF so that you have access to exactly the colors that they would want, or the fonts, or the images, stickers, whatever it is. Um, so you're not left guessing and color picking and whatever. Um, Always have a brand guide, and if the brand doesn't have one or says that they can't give it to you because it's like confidential or whatever, just like leave. Um, and then last one is unfamiliar with Roblox, but I have an asterisk on that because most brands will not be like experts on Roblox the way that we are. But if they come on and they're assuming a lot of things about Roblox that are wrong, or assuming that like certain things can be done on Roblox, tech wise or integration wise for brands that is like completely wrong and like out there, I would start either having conversations with them about that or start pulling back, because in my experience those brands are really difficult to work with because they have one idea of Roblox in mind and you have another, and then when you're both trying to ship the product out, they're going to be very apprehensive about the entire thing. And this is what I meant about contracts, just getting into advocating for yourself. So, in the planning stages, don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. No brand work is worth pennies an hour. Everybody say it with me when you're home. No brand work is worth pennies an hour. Why? Um, I don't care if it's like my most favorite artist or brand and like I buy this every day. If they offer me like $10 an hour for like any type of brand work, like I will decline. It's not worth saying that you worked for them in the long run. Trust me, you will be screaming, crying, throwing up, pulling your hair, like working late nights, and the very fact that they're asking to pay you that little, it means that they're probably going to put you to work. So just never do it. Trust me. And then review your contracts carefully, like I said. So make sure your payment's included. You have a delivery date that you have to, deliver on. Ownership of items. That's where I said earlier, where like you're allowed to talk about the fact that you worked on this after it's published. Any late fees that you might be charging in case they take too long to pay you. And then edit windows. That's just like what time do they have, like what amount of time do they have after you submit an item to um like ask for edits, because some brands will abuse that. And then while you're mid contract, so now you've already signed the contract, you're kind of like already working on the stuff. Be certain about what can and can't be done on Roblox with deadlines. So just like, are they biting off more than what they can chew? Are they familiar with terms of service, and are they asking for something that might break it? Make sure you're all about that. And then also have a tracker available to you and the client of your work. So that could be through like Excel, Notion, or ClickUp. But basically, just making sure that they can see physically the work that you're doing and the progress as it goes. Um, sure, you can send that over Discord or email, but like try to have it somewhere where it's all together cohesively, because that's really good for documentation. Be realistic about delivery windows, workloads, and edits. So again, just like be real with them. Like if something were to happen to you and you have an emergency, like again, like worry about you first, okay? Like capitalism has turned us into like demons that need to work constantly and we cannot take one day off of work. Like, please make sure you're like advocating for yourself in a form of like self-love. And share with a brand partner if you've had an emergency or you need a mental health day and you might not be able to ship on time. Um, with the caveat that you give them enough notice and also like a plan going forward of like, okay, here's the new date and here's how I'm going to reach it. Um, and again, like on the flip side of that, if a brand is asking too much of you, like make sure you let them know like this is not going to get done if you want it done by August, for example. And if you need to renegotiate your payment, do so immediately and do it through email, never through phone, never through a Zoom call, always through email. And I will show you an example in the next slide. So you would say something like, "Hello, brand. Due to the project taking unexpected pivots and having multiple revision periods, is it possible to adjust our payment agreement? The current rate is not accurately reflecting the density and responsibility I've taken on in this project. I would be more comfortable with rate as it covers rate you want per hour and would allow me to continue whatever new idea or pivot that this brand provided you with. Let me know if this is possible and if you have any questions." This is like verbatim an email that I've had to send before, and I got a payment revision. So always like if you think that you need to be paid a little bit more because you've realized that this project is like much more than what it started to be, because that can happen, you know, like you start somewhere and a brand's like, oh my god, what if we did this, and you're excited about it too, so you're like, oh my god, yes, let's do that, and you're not being constrained by deadlines. Suddenly you're like, oh wait, but like low key, like that's a lot of work and I might need to get paid more for that. So yeah, just always do it through email, be respectful about it, and just continue that thread very carefully. And again, consult a lawyer if things get murky. All right, so now we're done with picking a brand, advocating for ourselves. So now let's get into like, okay, we're actually working on this brand item. And this is what works for me. And for being a fashion person and doing UGC items and also managing a team of like 40 people at a time, like doing 5 different brand projects at once, this is what works for me. So this might not work for everyone, but this is what I will share with anyone who might be interested. So organize yourself. I am ADHD. I know better than anyone that if I do not organize myself, I will just go crazy. So use a Google Calendar for all your meetings, but not even just your meetings. Do it for deadlines, do it for delivery dates, do it for first, second, third passes. Visually seeing like where things are happening and when is far better than being like, oh yeah, that's due July 28th. Because for me, like ADHD people, we have time blindness and a date can creep up on us really quickly. So do the same thing with Google Calendar. Make a habit of checking it every day. I said this before, but use Notion, ClickUp, Excel, etc. to work. So besides just like communicating with the client and like giving them access to any one of these things to be able to see kind of like continuous progress, also do it to organize yourself and kind of like a personal Notion or a personal project. Basically, what I mean by that is just like if you're conceptualizing, make sure to do it in there. I use Canva to like do rough sketches of things, like using the shapes and stuff to kind of show what I'm doing or to make mood boards and things like that. But then I always end up transferring that over somewhere else to kind of keep everything in one place. Keep your Google Drive labeled. So this is like as you're working and you're uploading stuff. Keep it labeled, and I also will apply that to like your files when you initially save things. I know this is so hard, and I know that every developer has like at one point like the messiest files ever, and I know you regret it. So when you start a brand project especially, you don't want to lose files, you don't want to have messy files. Name everything appropriately, version 1, version 2, whatever. Don't name something final if you don't know for sure it's blah 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 final version. And then when you're putting all that in your Google Drive, make sure it's all labeled, separated, neat, because that'll be much easier for when you end up doing the delivery to the client. Document your conversations. We went over that. And then clock the hours you work. That's just really important, especially if you're doing just a base rate. Say if you're doing a base rate of like $400, still clock how many hours you're working and then like divide that every so often to make sure that you're still earning a per hour wage for that item that you would be willing to accept. Um, and then again, if it gets past that point, start renegotiating your contract. So this is a like quick like how to do your progress with a client. So this is again what I do. I do a first pass, which is just sketches. So whatever it is that you guys have agreed on, put a sketch on the humanoid that they're asking for. So if you're doing layered clothing, do it on a layered clothing humanoid. Like I literally take a screenshot of like a arthro rig on Roblox, like facing forward, and then I draw on it or have my artist draw on it. um, Same thing with R6, R15, whatever. And there are some exceptions where we won't do that and we'll just like have them draw like on their own custom body that they draw, but that's like rare. Um, Make sure to you provide like a color palette that you used on the side so that they can clearly see if there's some color mixing going on. They can clearly see you use the items on the brand guide. And then provide a couple angles if possible. So like maybe like forward facing and then like 45-degree angle or the back if like there's something they need to see in the back that would be relevant to like the item. Then you want to do a second pass with renders, and that's just if you're doing 3D UGC, that would be something along the lines of just having your mesh done but not textured. So the topography, everything is done. I would show them the mesh without the topography first, then a mesh with the topography so they can see that you did a nice, neat, cool job. And then I would provide in that pass, even if they don't know what this is yet, the tris count and the vert count, just so that they know ahead of time, like what that's looking like in case they want to ask you to add more items. And then if it's 2D, I would probably do just like a flat color template. So like you've sketched it out and maybe you haven't done like the rendering yet of lines, but you definitely did colors already so that they can just kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. Third pass is the fully textured 3D model ready to publish on Studio. So that's like it. Like you gave them a couple angles, it's fully textured. They can see that it looks ready to go. And at that point, that's where they should be providing some pretty intense edits if they want them, because you need a cage, rig, etc. That takes a while. So make sure to pass that over before you weight paint and do all the hard technical work. Or a fully shaded and lined 2D item. So then like the revision process. So like a brand has now asked you like to edit something during any of those points. How do you go about that? So pay attention to what they're saying. Don't don't do the thing where you're like listening, but like you only hear what you want to hear, because I know artists do that a lot. Like we think we know best about the items we've made. And then we decide that like this is the revision that it's going to need based on that like a couple words you took from the brand. Don't do that. Fully listen, take notes, write down what they're saying, or if it's like written, like make sure you fully understand what they're saying. And that leads me to asking questions. So don't just assume, don't like fill in the gaps of like something that the brand gives you like edit wise. Ask questions. Be like, "Oh, can we do purple on here?" Sure. What shade of purple were you thinking of? Or like, can we do a belt? And be like, absolutely. Are you thinking a more grunge belt or a more fancy belt? Like, ask questions. Like, if you think as you're drawing something that like that's an ambiguous decision, just ask. It's gonna save you so much time. I promise. And be proactive. If a client seems like they're constantly changing their mind during revisions and you're going from black to white constantly, make sure to have a conversation with them about that, because you're just going to be stuck in a cycle, and then eventually you're going to have to renegotiate your contract because you're not being paid for the amount of time that you're working on. And then this is a delivery checklist of like what you should check before you actually deliver an item to a client once they've already accepted like, cool, this is what we want and this looks great. So organize yourself, and I have that like up there as like the most important one, and it has like different colors and everything because I need you guys to remember that. I know I said it earlier. I'm going to say it one more time. Label all your files. Label the sub files. Label whatever it is that you put in there that the client might not even need to look at, but it's in there. Label it. I have examples. So this is like a fake Google Drive. So partnership name. Inside that folder, you have item 1 and item 2. Inside item 1, imagine those aren't folders but actual like files. It's item PNGs if it's like a 3D model. And then the FBX. And then if they ask you for the blend file, put that in too. Label everything. It'll also make it easier for when the client gets it and they're not asking you a million questions of like, where's this? Where's that? Why isn't that there? Make sure to test all your items in Studio 2 before you um, hand it over. So just like make sure that everything is weight painted correctly, there's no clipping, the textures are loading, all that fun stuff. With testing though, make sure you notify the client because there are instances of people like I think like when you upload something to Studio, it like can become public even if you haven't published. And that's how like event leakers find stuff. So just make sure you notify the client ahead of time and like make them aware of that like, hey, I'm gonna test items to make sure they work before I send them to you. There might be some leaking. Like, how cool are we with that? And then deliver. And remember, take breaks. I am guilty of this. I don't take breaks. I work for like 10 hours straight and then it's nighttime and I'm like, oh my God, time went by so fast. Hydrate. Um, Again, I feel like a lot of devs are guilty of this, of just like working on their computer like psychopaths and forgetting that they have to like drink water. And be kind to yourself and others. So again, this goes back to like taking mental health days and also being gentle with yourself. If you cannot attain a request that a brand is asking you for, don't feel embarrassed, don't feel sad. Like reach out to your community, your friends and ask for advice and be gentle with yourself if you feel like you're just not up to par. Like it's okay. Like it happens to like the most skilled amazing people in this community. Everyone asks for help. And others is kind of like if you're getting frustrated with this brand deal and you're working maybe with co-partners, or for example, for in my situation I have staff. I always try to remind myself like it is the partner that is being difficult or it is the client that's being difficult, not my staff. So when I communicate that something needs to be edited or when I communicate that we're taking a really large pivot, it's not my staff's fault. So do the same thing with others, yourself, whoever it is that's like also needing communication being sent to them. Like you're kind. Um, do hand stretches. There's like a really cool, fun, like guide online. But again, like we're always on our computers, we're always on our tablets. Like make sure you're not getting that carpal tunnel and stretch your wrist and your fingers and your hands. And then be true to yourself. So that one's just pretty straightforward, but like don't let a brand try to change the way that you speak or believe in, all that fun stuff. I think a particularly good example nowadays is AI and deciding to work with a brand that uses it and to what extent do they use it, what uh, databases do they pull from, all that fun stuff, NFTs, all those controversial things that people have different opinions on. Make sure you stick to yours and don't just grab a check. And now we're gonna do quizzes. Am I okay to do quizzes? Are we ready to do the quizzes? I don't know if I am. All good. Okay, awesome. So pay attention if you guys had uh any any idea of what was going on. So the question is, what is the order of a good pitch? Here are your options. name, metrics, deck, and then your pitch. Name, pitch, metrics, then deck. Deck, name, pitch, and then metrics. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. What? Oh, well, I also have to give you guys the answer. So that's the answer. So then now we're going to do what should you do to organize yourself with a brand deal? Nothing, yellow. Use calendar meetings, track progress with your apps, and document communication. Use calendar meetings and nothing else. Or message the client a few times. Give you guys a couple seconds. All right. There you guys go. And now I have a super cool announcement. Okay. This is fun. There is a Connect 2023 game jam going on. It will start at 10 a.m. Pacific time on July 28th. Your team will have 10 days starting from that day. So it'll be due August 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. The theme is unknown yet. It will be released once the challenge starts, which is July 28th at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. And if you're thinking of starting to build your team from now, you should know that your team can be one person or up to 5 people. There are 3 winners for each category, so a total of 9 winners. These are the categories. We have most immersive experience, most unique game concept, and best video pitch. For every winner, there are prizes. So first place is a $600 Go gift card per team member. Second place is a $400 Go gift card per team member. And third place is a $200 Go gift card per team member. So once again, these categories will have 3 winning teams each, and each team will win those prizes based on which of the 3 spots they rank in. And if you have questions or if you need more information, there is a Connect 23 post that will be going up or is up, and you guys can check out all the additional requirements, any rules, and things like that. And also follow the thread so that you can keep up to date for any updates that might come when the jam starts. And that's it. Any questions? I think they will be taking questions and telling me them.
Yes, thanks, Anna. We're
Yeah.
going to go ahead and get to the Q&As. So please, everyone, remember to send all of your questions in the form being displayed at the top of the screen. All right, and we do already have a few, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Our first question comes from DevMatrix1635. They ask, how can we collaborate with brands without affecting copyright on Roblox if we're new to brand collaborations?
So I feel like what you're asking is if you'll get copyright striked for putting a brand item up with branding on it. If the brand has consented to it, and once again this is like really important to have those contracts, you won't get DMCA'd because they want the item to stay up. So yeah, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Our next question is from It's Yellow Alpaca, who asks, what are some examples of successful brand integrations or partnerships on the Roblox platform and what made them effective?
I love this question. I get asked this question by brands a lot, and I always give them the same few examples. So, the Hello Kitty Cafe by I think it's Big Rock Panda Games is like one of the best integrations because it still has a consistent high concurrent player count, and just everything about it is true to the Hello Kitty brand, but also something kind of fun and unique for Roblox, but also still maintains that nativity aspect of Roblox where it's not trying too hard to be an ad. It's still playable and really cute and like touches on a very specific audience. So that's a really good example. Van's World was a really like good example too, um, and they still are the largest, most played like brand integration. If you want fashion specific, Closet with Sawhorse was like quite literally the best integration I've ever seen so far. And now that they're working with Fenty, like I think that's gonna do even better. But yeah, Fashion Closet did so good because I think Carly herself was really involved in the entire process. Um, I even got an opportunity to speak to her too, and she just seemed really genuine and like truly wanted to know about Roblox. So like something that I've also noticed is if the brand is super into Roblox and knows a lot about it, like I think the partnership is going to do well. Um, and I think Closet did really well too because you could tell that they took their time with making those items and finding native Roblox devs who understand like what art looks good. Um, so I think another aspect of like overall brand integration success is like making sure that like you're hiring people that know what they're doing and are native to the platform.
Awesome, very well said. Our next question is also from It's Yellow Alpaca, who asks, what are the key considerations and best practices for brands in managing and executing projects on the Roblox platform?
Could you say that one more time?
Yes. What are the key considerations and best practices for brands in managing and executing projects on the Roblox platform?
I think key considerations would be the one, they know what they're doing and they're talking about when it comes to Roblox. Two, they are flexible with like you making suggestions and you saying this is not going to work on this platform. People are not going to accept this and they're going to think that it's an ad or they're going to think that it's weird or whatever. Like they need to be flexible. And then three, like taking your time, not rushing things, like just because they want a quick turnover and profit really quickly. Letting people take their time, no crunch culture, and just making sure that whatever integration or brand process you make is, it's just well thought out and it's something that you're proud of putting out there, if that makes sense.
Awesome. And our next question comes from Lizzie Wizzy Fizzy, who asks, what programs should you use to make a portfolio? Is it good to save your work under a document so that you can save dates and things like that?
Yeah, so there's no one way to make a portfolio. I think it's whatever works best for you and how you want to present your work. But I think a lot of people use websites like Wix or even Google Pages, uh, Squarespace, all that fun stuff. With that, there's pros and cons to different ways to host a portfolio. With hosting a website, you obviously have to pay a hosting fee if you want to have your own URL, which looks more professional. You have a little bit more freedom when it comes to element and design, but you're a little constrained if you're not a huge web page person and you don't actually know how to design an aesthetically pleasing web page. Another thing is just how like you can do a saved document, like you mentioned. I think with that, it's again pros and cons. Like you might want to go back and change dates, which makes it a little more complicated because it's a little more difficult to keep a document up to date. Um, with doing decks, on like Google Slideshow. I've done decks on like just like Google Slides. I'm also caveating that with like I'm pretty savvy with making decks and slides and stuff because I've been doing this for so many years. So again, if you're not really all that skilled in slides, you might not want to do it, but if you are, like, go for it. Um if not, I've seen a lot of people use Figma, Photoshop, whatever website, even Canva, like whatever website has an opportunity for you to use elements to make unique branding. I'd go for it.
All right. And the next question comes from Jason, who asks, what should we do if a brand suddenly terminates a contract with us, even though we have worked according to the contract and worked professionally?
Yeah, so most contracts will have a termination clause, and if they don't, again, you should probably work that into your contract. Again, like, when it comes to contracts, like, get a lawyer, get someone to look at them. But most brands will have a termination clause. I usually put those in my clauses as well, but it basically will say something along the lines of like both parties can terminate at any time, but whoever the contractor is will get paid the amount of money that's equivalent to the amount of work that's been done up to that time. So if you only have half of the item done, you would probably do some like hour calculation of hours that you've worked on, and like that would be the payout that you would get. That's in my experience, like that's all the like amendment you need in terms of like contract stuff. But if it's not in your contract and that happens, I don't even know what to tell you. I feel like that would get so messy so fast.
All right. Next is from SQL3D, who asks, how can a brand effectively engage with its customers and build long-term relationships?
Hire a community manager that's in Roblox. I cannot like this is like the most important thing ever. Like, you should be able to give up control to a community manager that um is able to like natively like work with Roblox. So I think a lot of like Barrier 4 and a couple other management studios where you can pay them to manage your community and set up the Discord for you, do challenges. NARS does this a lot. They do like updates and challenges. I think it's also up to the brand to decide whether they want it to be like a one time thing or they want it to be like multiple updates. I think obviously multiple updates is more profitable, but some brands like are one and done. So if you are going down the path of multiple updates, like having a community manager that's native to Roblox, that can communicate those updates and do a lot of branding for you and engaging events and things like that will definitely help a brand connect more with a community. I think also like doing teasers, contests that involve the community and can somehow involve the community's work is super good. Jailbreak did that with their first NASCAR iteration. They allowed people to design a like car exterior, and the winning person would get the exterior inside of Jailbreak, and I think a cash prize. I could be wrong, but things like that help a brand connect with their community.
All right, next one comes from Deathbringer420, who asks, do you have to be a big creator to get a brand deal?
Now, I've seen creators who aren't particularly big get a brand deal. I think it helps, and I will not lie. There is favoritism when it comes to that, and I benefit from that favoritism. Like, I benefit from being a big creator and having a lot of friends and people in the network that know me and reach out to me and go, "Hey, like I just got this exciting brand deal. I really want to invite you to it. Let's do it." So there is a disadvantage. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But if like we all got there somehow. So like if you're a small creator and you want to make yourself stand out, like I think listening to everything I said and like absorbing that and then like spitting it out in terms of your image and how you speak and how you carry yourself online will makes such a difference in how people perceive you, and they'll be like, wow, this person is like super professional, or like, wow, this person knows what they're saying. And you'll start to notice a difference in your growth. And I can even give an anecdote. Like, I was not as smart about all these things or as big, or I didn't know what I was doing until I had Infinite Canvas reach out to me, and it was Tal particularly who mentored me and was like, you're crazy. Like, you're worth more than what you're putting yourself as like worth. And so like, he mentored me a little and was like, if you change the way you are and present yourself and ask for what you're worth, like, you're gonna notice a difference. And that was 2 years ago. And I still think of Tal every day. And I'm like, man, because of him, like, I started to like put a different value on myself. So if you're a small UGC creator, etc., always remember that just because there's a bigger fish in the pond doesn't mean that you don't have a chance. There's always a chance.
Awesome. And the last question we have for now is from Wingard XXM, who
Mhm.
asks, is it difficult to get a deal with a brand as an individual, or would it be better to make a group/company and approach brands that way?
Because I am a company and I offer packages to brands of like, I will be the manager, you only have to talk to me and go through me. I also have 20 or so artists at my disposal that you don't need to talk to and manage, but I will manage. Um, they really tend to lean towards that because if there's one thing that they don't want to do is worry about managing an additional 20 people. If they could just talk to one person, that'd be awesome. And then also it for a lot of brands, like what I offer is like speed. So because I have 20 or so people on deck ready at all times to make any item, they are able to like go bigger in terms of ideas or amount of items that they want to do. So that's like really attractive for them. But on the flip side, I've seen a lot of solo artists, Love Spun, Rush, uh, for a while Builder Boy, but now he has his own big company thing going on. But all those people also work solo or worked, and they find success too. I can't really speak on what would what they do that is like beneficial. Like, I feel like they could probably do a better job. But I would say probably just like when you're an individual, makes you stand out as like your individual style. And like if you have a very unique style of how you do art, like I'm sure brands are going to prefer that. Because I guess a downside to me is like genericacy. Like we offer just like one generic package.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anna. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up this workshop now. Stay tuned for our next workshop, which is going to be optimization in video game programming on July 14th at 1 p.m. PT. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, thank you.